find their strength renewed.
Genealogy may seem uninteresting, but the past can help explain the present. Example, 15 years ago, in jest, I was told by a physician that I was one unlucky black man. She had just diagnosed me with a strange ailment only found prevalent in Eastern Europeans. In fact, she had never seen an African American with this malady, and that's why it took them so long to diagnose. Fast forward 15 years later, I researched my genealogical makeup, and there, in a man that could not look more different than an Eastern European, was a strip of genes from Eastern Europe, from an ancestor I don't know. Genealogy is not just some boring list of names. It can help explain current situations. Last week we learned that Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Shem, the oldest son, had 5 sons. One of his sons, Arpachshad, was born 2 years after the flood. Arpachshad had a son, Selah, and Selah had a son, Ever. Ever fathered his son, Peleg, and Peleg was 30 when he had his son, Reu. Reu was 32 when his son, Serug, was born, and at 30, Serug fathered his son, Nahor. Nahor was 29 when his son, Terah, was born. Our lesson looks at the family line of Terah. From Terah came 3 sons, Abram, who was called Abraham, who entered into a covenant with God, Nahor, and Haran, the father of Lot. The greatest descendant of Abram, later called Abraham, was Jesus the Christ. Genealogy helps us explain our present.
From whence then hast thou this living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well?
Haran died before his father while in Ur. Terah took his son Abram and Abram's wife Sarai and his grandson Lot. They left Ur and were going to the land of Canaan, but when they got to Haran, about halfway, they settled there. Now, the genealogy gives us the background of Abram, who would become the father of many nations. In this part of our lesson, technically, there is not yet an expressed covenant between Abram and God. In fact, Abram's call in Genesis 12 is not a detailed call. It requires him to walk out on faith. While I grew up in many other places, I now live in the same county, only a few miles from the plantation where my ancestors toiled. Many of us live near our relatives, near our family place where we grew up. But an aging Abram was told by God to leave the place he knew, to leave the place his father had brought him to leave the place that his father had worked to preserve, and go to an unspecified place that God would later show him. In exchange, this man with a barren, aging wife would become a great nation. This is a pretty vague promise, but at this point, you have to remember this was a promise from God. God made 3 promises to Abram. 1, he made a promise for land in verse 1, the promised land. In verse 2, he promised him a seed, which became Isaac. And in verse 3, he said Abraham would have a great name and he would be blessed. Now, God knew that Abraham was going to a strange place with people with heathenish ways, so his blessing was a little more specific. He said, I'm going to protect you, Abram. Those people who help Abram would be blessed, and those people who hurt Abram would be cursed or hurt. God told Abram, your name will be great, and today 57% of the world Over 4.2 billion people practice Judaism, Islam, or Christianity, and all of those religions trace their spiritual lineage back to this one patriarch. So at 75, Abram and his wife left Haran with Lot, going to the place God would show them and give them for he and his descendants. In Abram, we see the faith and the courage to obey God's will. So, the next time you pray, thy will be done, remember that means in your home as it is in heaven. That's the lesson for this week. Have a great week. Bye.